Hey creators, it's Melissa with Melissa's Creations, and I wanted to show you guys how to make this adorable card box. This is perfect for all of those holiday crafting sessions that you or you and your customers will be doing this holiday season. This fits 8 fully loaded envelopes and with cards. These are actually card kits, so there's lots of materials loose in there, and it can fit probably, it depends on the thickness, but these are pretty thick. So there's 8 of these cards in here. It looks like a little mantle. Isn't that adorable? The embossing folder is the brick wall. We have our little wreath down here, our sentiment, and the cute little stockings hanging from the mantle. We also have some pine bows up here. So it's just a really fun and cute way to tote around all of those holiday cards that you'll be making this season. So let's go ahead and get started and make this adorable little container. I'm starting with a piece of Smoky Slate cardstock. This was 8.5 by 11, and I trimmed it down to 10 inches by 8.5. We are also going to need a piece of Emerald Envy cardstock, as well as some crumb cake scrap, enough to cut out 3 of these adorable little bears. The designer paper that I am using is all from the Presents and Pinecones designer series paper from the holiday catalog. This is the star on one side, but we're using this red side. We also have this fun red and green. They kind of look like faux knit. You can kind of see the design on there. And then we also have this fun holly piece here. And the bells are on the other side of that. So all of the pieces that we are going to cut out are from 2 different collections. The first collection is the Santa's Sleigh bundle. So that is the Santa's Sleigh framelits dies and the Santa's Sleigh stamp set. For the stamps, we're going to use the stocking and the bear. And then for the framelits, we're using the stocking, the wreath, and the bear. With crumb cake ink, you're going to stamp onto the crumb cake cardstock and then cut out these adorable little bears. We're going to cut out 1 wreath from Emerald Envy, 1 bow out of a red glimmer paper. We're going to stamp 2 stockings on the red designer series paper and 1 stocking on the green designer series paper. And then we're going to cut all 3 of those out with the framelit. Using the second smallest oval from the Layering Ovals framelits dies, we're going to cut a piece out of Whisper White. And using the 3rd largest scalloped oval, we're going to cut a piece of designer series paper. It's the stars on one side and red on the other. We are also using some of the thinlits from the Pretty Pines thinlits dies. This coordinates with the Christmas Pines stamp set. Out of Cherry Cobbler, we cut 1 of the large bows. Also out of Cherry Cobbler, we cut 2 of these little berry stems. Out of Emerald Envy, I cut 1 of each of these stems. And also out of Emerald Envy, I cut 2 each of the pine bows. All right, now we're gonna do some scoring. So this sheet of paper measures 8.5 inches wide by 10 inches long. With the short edge, or the 8.5 inch edge up at the top, we're going to score it at 1 3/8. And 7 1/8. I'm going to rotate it, so now the 10 inch or the long edge is up at the top, and now we're going to score it at 5, 6 3/8, and then we're going to flip it over and score it at 9 3/8. With our bone folder, we're going to crease all of those score lines. With this thin score line, remember to crease it in the opposite direction. Now using some snips, we're going to snip straight up on that long skinny score line, right there. And then we're going to snip off the edge and the other edge. Now we're going to cut up these score lines here. And slightly, not very much, just a little, wedge in those sides to that flap in the middle. Do the same on the other side. And on these two flaps, here's our main flap at the bottom, we're going to trim off about half of each of those side flaps. And then we're going to wedge those. So this is what your template should look like. We have the skinny strip on this end. We've notched out and trimmed down the flaps on these two sides. We have our skinny strip in the middle here, and then our larger piece on this side here. So to get the brick wall embossing folder on this piece, all we have to do is do a little bit of folding. So I'm going to tuck all of these ends in here. I'm going to tuck these ends in. And I'm going to fold this end down. So now all of my pieces are tucked away, and it looks like just one big rectangle at this point. I'm going to take my folder, and I want my bricks to be going this way, the correct way, when they are embossed on my mantle. So I'm just going to slide in my folder. Now I have the wrong side of the folder facing towards me. This is the correct side of my box, the piece that folds towards you. This is the right side of the box. So everything else should be tucked underneath and behind. But this piece is folded towards you. So I'm going to take the wrong side of the folder. That means the Stampin' Up! Logo is facing down. I'm going to slide that right over that entire piece just to that first score line down here. And line it up. There, just like this. When I run it through the Big Shot, it's going to be a tight fit. So make sure that your embossing folder is lined up very well with the edges of your plate. Put your top plate on, and we're only going to this point. So make sure that your flaps are tucked in and they're not hanging over the edge. I have my bottom plate all the way out here to this edge, but my top plate is stopping where my embossing folder stops. So I'm only going to be embossing that section. So we're going to gently run this through, and it will be a tight squeeze. Just go until it clicks and then come back out the same direction. That will just help to make sure that your paper doesn't rip in any places. And then when we take it out, we have our brick wall embossing. Now don't worry about these flaps, they're going to be glued, so it's perfectly fine that they are embossed as well. Okay, so now we have our side embossed. We're ready to put this together and then start embellishing. So I'm going to run some fast fuse. You could also use tear and tape right along the edge here. And again, this is still on the right side of the box. And you can tell the right side because this flap comes up and to the front. I'm also going to run some adhesive on the side tabs. And to glue this together, we first want to glue these onto here. Now you want to make sure that your angle is 90 degrees. So if you have to lay it down, kind of look at it from the top. Do what you gotta do, because since we wedged this out, it's not going to line up perfectly, but we wedged it to make sure that we get a very nice corner. So we're gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm going to set it flat against the desk, kind of hold it up and just glue it in place. Now I can bring these edges and wrap them around, and I want to line up the edge of the cardstock with the corner of the front of the box. All right, so now to get the angled effect, take some long scissors and go from the corner up to the corner of that. Now to bring back in the embellishments. This piece measures 2 inches by 5 3/4 of an inch. Now when you're cutting this piece to go on the inside, cut it just a hair, a 1/16 of an inch smaller than 5 3/4. That way it slides in and fits just perfect. We're going to stamp our sentiment. This comes from the Santa's Sleigh stamp set. It says, "Hope your season brings one good thing on top of another." And I'm going to stamp that in basic black right onto my Whisper White oval. I'm going to adhere that to my scalloped oval. And now we're ready to start decorating. Yay! So I'm going to start with the wreath. Now I cut this a little off center so that the bottom was a little bit thicker than the top. I'm going to take a glue dot and my glimmer bow. I'm going to adhere that onto my wreath. I'm going to put that on the larger side, just like that. Now to get my berries on that wreath, I'm going to take a red Sharpie. I'm just going to color in some of our little rhinestones. I'm going to work on my bears in my stockings. I'm going to take a glue dot, and on the right side of the bear, right down at their little feet, I'm going to pick up a glue dot, and on the stocking I'm going to wrap his little paw in front of the hanger on the stocking so that it looks like he's peeking out, just like that. Now I'm going to take some of our white organza ribbon, and I'm going to wrap that around my box. Take my sentiment, and with some of the scraps from the dimensionals on the outer edges, I'm going to use those on the top and bottom of the sentiment. And I'm going to put that off to the side here. And that makes sure that that ribbon doesn't go anywhere, because it's sticking partially to the ribbon and partially to the background. I'm going to take my little wreath and I'm going to tuck that into my knot by pulling the tails through the middle of the wreath and then just tucking him behind my knot. Now we can decorate our mantle. So for that, you're going to need some fine tip glue. So we'll unscrew this guy. And you want to work fairly quickly with this glue so that it doesn't dry up and get stuck in your fine tip. So when I turn my stocking over, I'm going to bend that little hanger that's on the stocking. I'm going to bend that little piece down, and I'm going to put some glue, just one little dot is all you need, right onto that hanger. Now I can put my little bear and hold down that hanger until it starts to stick. Now this glue, when it dries, it is very strong, but until it dries down a little bit, it won't seem like it's going to do anything for you. So just be very careful at this stage. Make sure you hold it down for a good few seconds before you move on to your next piece. I'm going to put the other red stocking on the opposite side. So again, I'm going to bend over the hanger and put a little dot of glue. Okay, now we're going to take our pine bows going to put a couple of dots down the spine just like this. You don't need much, it's just about this much. And then I'm going to lay that. The center of my box is about right where my little green stocking guy is. So I'm going to make that my joining point. So I'm going to put all of my pieces so that the ends meet behind my green stocking. Once you have your pine bows down, then we're going to move on to the little red berry stems. And I'm going to just run a little bit of glue all up at stem base. And then we have our green stems. So again, a little bit of glue on that stem. And then when you stand it up, just kind of fluff up the mantle part and kind of bend down your little stocking bears. And they should all kind of fall into place, and you can kind of manipulate that. Now we're going to put the cap back onto our glue pen. Make sure it doesn't dry out. And we're going to take a tiny piece of dimensional. I'm just going to cut one of these little skinny bits right here. I'm just taking that little tiny piece. I'm going to put that onto the back of my bow, right in the middle. If you need to use a paper piercer, might not be a bad idea. Right there. You could use a glue dot as well. That would work just fine. I'm really not too concerned about seeing any of the dimensional behind there. You can see a little tiny bit poking through, but I'm really not worried about it. So I'm just going to put that bow right in the middle. Right, so now you are ready to pop in the cards that you've made at your holiday events, and there it is, all ready to go. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment and let me know what you thought, and also if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to be notified when I upload new videos. I have tips on Mondays, live videos on Wednesdays, and regular tutorials on Fridays. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Head over to melissascreations.com to find out more information about all of the services and activities that I offer. Thanks again, guys. Have a good day.